Evening all, we're just gonna have a little chat. I don't know if I'll post this video before the trench thing or not, probably, I don't know. So let's talk about some things. I did a short video on the debt ceiling and say in 18 months, you need to probably consider the fact that if the libertarians and the Democrats and the lefties think that they're going to lose, then you can probably count on things getting stupid around springtime next year, because they're fair weather people. They're not interested in doing stupid shit when it's cold outside. You could probably expecting a higher than average fire season next year. You know, antics will be happening, and we're assuming that the debt ceiling deal is going to go through. I'm hearing rumblings that it's having problems, but I think in the end it is going to go through. So if you look at that, then you really have about 12 months until things get ignorant. Now, apparently there's a lot of drama going on overseas. Allegedly there's drone strikes in Moscow area. They're going to close the airspace. Apparently North Korea is acting a fool and shooting missiles off, and Japan and South Korea are doing something. So that leaves China, Taiwan, and Israel and Iran. So, you know, Marfrugal TV or news, Marf is on, was live. I was listening to Bear, trying to get his angle on some stuff. He's doing a quick Q and answer thing. So basically right now, if shit pops off, like, things should be calming down over in Moscow and Ukraine and Russia right now, because it should be close to the middle of the night over there, and then probably around midnight, 1 or 2, everybody will start waking up to whatever has happened, and that's assuming that Ukraine doesn't attack in the middle of the night. So I've often said watch Red Dawn 1 and 2, and I said recently use Band of Brothers as examples. I said bugging out, prepping, whatever. If you pay attention to when they talk about attacking stuff, they're doing it in between the hours of 2 and 4 or 5 in the morning, because that is the time when, no matter who you are, even if you're on night shift and you've been on night shift, that is the time where you're least alert. Now, if you're just on a patrol and it's your fucking turn to be awake for 2 to 4 hours, and if you're not very disciplined, then that guard is going to go to sleep. That's just the way it is, especially if they sit still for too long. So I still think food is going to be a big problem. Use the FDA website, look at projected yields. My understanding is they're way down, not just in the U.S. So what does that mean? That means that probably in 6 months, stuff's going to start getting harder to get. So what does that put us in? That puts us at Christmas time. So my recommendation to you is, we're coming to the end of spring, summer's getting ready to start. I would shop for your turkey, especially if you have a deep freeze like me. Shop in July, August, and throw that sucker in the deep freeze. I like a particular type of ham that's only available in the military commissary, which is like a military grocery store, like Albertsons or Kroger's or H-E-B down here in Texas, or Safeway or Piggly Wiggly. Basically, it's a military grocery store. They carry a brand called Kentucky ham, and they're really good. So I can't buy my hams typically until the season gets here. But last year I bought 3 turkey breasts, threw them in the deep freeze, and thawed them out and ate them. So I have to look. I think I still got one, so I probably need to eat that one. But I'm planning on actually buying my turkey for this coming Thanksgiving and Christmas this summer. So, and, you know, one of the reoccurring questions on prepping channels is, when is it too late to prep? So with all the shit going on in Ukraine and Russia right now, and North Korea and South Korea and Japan, and then all right, let's look at Taiwan, China. Well, if some of that shit kicks off, or if Russia gets tired of this shit and says, okay, you know, if they don't have something sitting off all three of our coasts, and you say what coast? The Gulf Coast, the East Coast, and the West Coast. They already have predetermined targets. I want to believe they won't use strategic nukes, but they may launch some tactical ones on us, or they may EMP us. Apparently, North Korea just put up a satellite, and apparently they've got satellites that are up there that aren't doing anything. And the question is, are they duds, or are they sitting there waiting to be used as an EMP or whatever? So you have up until shit hits the fan to start prepping, and then after that, you better be really quick. You better be a fast study, because there's a lot of shit that you got to learn to be able to do, because we're just not set up to live off the land anymore as humans, at least not in America. Now, some of the other countries in the world, yeah. Some of the other people in the world, yeah. Now, is that to say we won't survive? Those that do will be very tough. And you need to understand that when I say Band of Brothers is going to give you an example of bugging out. Every time, the entire time you're bugging out until you find a place where you're going to hunker down for a while, you're going to be moving. And then every time you come across somebody, it could become a fight to the death. And you need to understand that if you come across somebody just because they're nice and smiling and friendly, it doesn't mean that they're good people. It doesn't even mean that they're on your side. It means that they're watching you. And, you know, if you tell them where you're going, then they know where you're going. You know, or if they follow you, or if they go find their bigger gang of people and then they track you down. So I'm not trying to scare you, but you need to understand that. You know, Rudy and a lot of other prepper channels are real good at explaining it. We in America have not been hungry. When you are hungry enough to eat your dog, or eat someone else's dog, or eat a cat, or eat an opossum. You know, most people wouldn't consider eating any of those. Eat, you know, I mean, you look at The Walking Dead in the one episode where there was dogs that were going to attack them. They shot the dogs and they ate the dogs. I mean, we as a society have not been hungry in a very long time. So even without a war, even without shit hits the fan, if you look at the USDA and the FDA website on yields for crops, and you look at the dwindling numbers of cattle, the dwindling numbers of chickens, the dwindling numbers of pigs, the fact that some of the meat processing plants and lots of farm and ranch land are being bought up, and then you throw in inflation in there, I think food is going to be a big deal. So if stuff holds off till next year, or if it kicks off but we're not directly affected until next year, you have as much time as you have. So my advice is, if you have not learned how to fish, one, make sure you're close to somewhere that you can fish. If there's no lakes and no streams and there's no fish, then don't fish. Learn to hunt. You know, you can hunt anywhere. It's just a question of what. A week ago, when I let my dogs out at 1:30 in the morning before I went to bed, there were pigs fighting across the street, probably 2 boars. I haven't heard them since, but that means that the one boar lost and the one boar is over there having a heyday with the sows. You know, Texas has got a wild pig problem, so, you know, those things carry diseases. Every wild animal carries diseases. You need to know which ones to shoot. If you see one disease, then there's a decent chance the whole pack is diseased. So kill them all, but don't eat them. There's an art to butchering an animal, especially if you haven't done it. You know, there's things you need to know. You know, like you probably need to have a knife per type animal. Knife for chickens, knife for pigs, knife for cows. You need to wash it afterwards and heat it up with fire if you don't have no way to sanitize it. You need to have a way to sharpen your knives. You can cut, make clean cuts. You know, if you're in an area where you can fish, then do you have fishing supplies? Do you know how to fish? Can you catch fish? You know, I already gave you a secret. July 4th is getting ready to come around. Go buy some fireworks. Get some waterproof M80s. Light that sucker in about 10 to 12, 20, 30 feet of water. Let it in there. It'll pop and then fish will float to the top. So there. My mechanic friend told me a story. I forgot all about it. We used to go to a military surplus store and ask for a TA312. It's a big brick looking thing with a foam, but it has a hand crank on it. You hook up wires. My buddy talked about putting a chain in one end on the bottom and the chain at the top, and you dangle it and then you crank that sucker. It kills the fish too. Stuns them, but he says if you don't catch it quick enough, they'll wake up and go away. You know, here's the thing: when you're shit hits the fan, you ain't gonna be wanting to sit at the lake all day or half the day or a quarter of the day trying to catch something to eat. So get a cast net. If you don't know what that is, Google it and then go find it. They're down here. They're not easy to find. I've got one, but it's so old it'd come apart. What else? Learn how to set snares. I don't know how to do that. I need to learn how to set traps if you don't have them. You can catch small game and traps, all kinds. You know, people will eat things that they have never dreamed of when you get hungry. Do you have, as John at Prep Nation calls, weapons of peace? Do you have ammo? Are your guns zeroed? Do you have an optic that you can use at night? Do you have a red lens flashlight or headlamp or something on your gun so that you can aim it, and then red light is not in a frequency band that many animals can see at night? So, I mean, I've seen a guy 3 feet from a raccoon. The raccoon was walking towards him, and when he realized what was in front of him, he about shit himself and then ran up the tree. Armadillos damn sure can't see it because they'll walk right up to you. Coyotes can see it. Pigs cannot. Deer cannot. Don't know about mountain lions or bears. So cows, I don't think they can see it. So, you know, chickens can't see it in the dark period, so that's why they get eaten in their roost, because predator gets in the pen and fucking chews off all the heads and then feasts on one. Do you know how to garden? It's not just throwing seeds in the ground. There's a long list of things that you need to learn how to do if you have not started. You know what? It is daunting. It is depressing. Yesterday I was sitting around after I had lunch with my dad, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, Jesus. I told my dad, he served 26 years in the Air Force protecting and defending this country. I served 24 and a half. My grandfather was in World War II, and our country was getting ready to go to shit. We are literally probably at the end. We're going to watch it dissolve. Now, does that mean it breaks apart? Does that mean, you know, because that's what Russia did. The USSR went from being the USSR down to being Russia. A lot of the countries that are around it that were Russian separated, became their own entity again. It's rumored that Putin wants to bring that back. You know, the only reason the federal government has any power in America is the Commerce Clause, and because Congress is the only institution that can mint money. So, and now that because our money is no longer tied or backed by gold, it's not worth anything other than the fact that we still have the biggest, baddest fucking army and military in the world. But I don't think that's going to last. So, you need to think about the debt ceiling. You need to think about the chaos that is going to ensue prior to the elections next year. You need to think about trying to get somewhere where you can grow crops. You can do it in the city, but if you got neighbors that are hungry, you're going to kill them so that you can eat your own food. I got neighbors out here. I I might have to deal with some people. I already had a talk with one of them. Told him, I said, I don't want to be fighting with you and your family, but you need to understand something. I will kill your ass if it comes to it. So, yeah. I'm 6 miles from the city limit. I'm 10 miles from the closest part of San Antonio. And then we're 15 to 20 depending on what part of downtown you're in. So most of the rich people live on the north side of town, going out 35 and going out 10 on the west side. There are 3 lakes in the area that have water. Canyon Lake, there's a stream that comes off of it, and then there's Calaveras Lake, which is the one I'm close to, and then Browning Lake, which is about 5 miles away. You know, people aren't stupid. About a week into whatever happens, if the power falls out, they're going to start making their way to water. The problem with that is most of them don't know that the water in the lake and the water in the canals and the water in places like that, you can't just fucking drink. So a lot of them are going to get sick. And if they do make it out here, they're going to be tough and they're going to be fucking hungry. So then the people who live out in the country are going to have a choice. Feed them motherfuckers or you shoot them. You know, you shoot enough of them, they'll stop coming around. But then others come at night. So I said a long time ago, you need to get a big fucking dog. I got one last year. He's almost a year old. He's a big badass until someone comes in the yard. Then he runs like a chicken. But he'll bite somebody. I'm almost certain of that. And then by that time, I'm awake. I will deal with your ass. So, debt ceiling, chaos for the elections, shit hits the fan because of war, possibility of nukes flying, or just a conventional fight, food, hunting, fishing. Can you make a fire? Can you garden? Can you sanitize water? Do you have backup power? Do you have power generation other than gas, whatever generators? Do you have deep freezers full of food? And if you do you have a way to keep them things running so that the food inside doesn't go bad? Do you have a way to black out your windows so that nobody knows you got power? Do you have weapons of peace? Do you have bullets for those weapons of peace? Do you have optics? Do you have knives? Do you have machetes? Do you have bug out bags? Do you have, can you bushcraft? Do you have a bug out location? Long list. You're running out of time. So, if you got more questions, leave some comments and I'll try to answer them. Hunting, fishing, water purification, making fire, tarps, tents. Realize when you start this shit, if it happens, the bugs are going to eat your ass up in Texas. That's just the way that is. I mean, if you have a house somewhere, if you've ever been in the country, like in the real country, where somebody's got 150, 200, 300 acres, they normally have an acre around the house they keep mowed. The rest of it they let grow up. So, the reason they do that here in Texas is because high grass hides snakes. Some of those snakes are really bad for you. So, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, watch out for critters. Snakes, spiders, scorpions, bees, wasps, chiggers down here in Texas. Fleas, ticks. I don't know if I said ticks before, but all that shit. It's all bad. Give you a hint for fishing. Wherever you're at around the lake, look for bugs that are around the lake. Catch some of those crickets, whatever, grub worms, Those will be natural bait that you'll be able to find on the shore in the area of the lake. Worms always work, but again, if you got waterproof amenities, you got a little canoe, go out there, light them and drop them and collect the fish and then go back to wherever you're at. Anyway, information is knowledge and power. Chief Prepper, out.